Nobody expected the debate to explode like this. What started as a routine political panel quickly spiraled into one of the most intense showdowns in recent memory. The stage was set in a sleek, modern television studio. Bright lights, a polished debate table, and 5 panelists seated in a semicircle, each representing different political viewpoints. The network had framed this as a women in politics discussion, but everyone knew what the real draw was. Karoline Leavitt versus the radical feminist activist, Lisa Caldwell. Caldwell was a well-known name in progressive circles, a loud and unapologetic figure who had built her career by attacking conservative women. She believed no woman could truly be empowered if she wasn't a liberal, and tonight, Karoline Leavitt was her target. Karoline, meanwhile, sat poised and composed, wearing a sharp blazer, her expression unreadable. She had been in dozens of debates like this before. She knew how these activists operated, talk over you, twist your words, and paint you as a villain. But she also knew how to shut them down. The panel discussion had been going for about 20 minutes before Caldwell finally made her move. She leaned forward, shaking her head dramatically. "You know, Karoline, I find it deeply disturbing that you, as a woman, actively support policies that hurt women. It's shocking to me." Karoline barely blinked. "Oh, yeah? Which policies?" Caldwell let out a fake laugh, turning to the audience as if they were all in on some inside joke. "Where do I even start?" She gestured wildly. "You oppose abortion rights. You support conservative male politicians who have zero respect for women. You're against gender pay equity, and let's not forget, you push this absurd idea that women don't need feminism." Karoline tilted her head, a small smirk forming. "And?" Caldwell's smug grin faltered slightly. She wasn't expecting that. "I'm sorry, and," she repeated, blinking. Karoline leaned forward, clasping her hands together. "I'm just wondering when you're going to say something that's actually true." The audience gasped. Caldwell's eyes flashed with anger. "Oh, don't play dumb, Karoline." She turned toward the other panelists, motioning toward Karoline like she was some kind of lost cause. "This is what I mean. She sits here pretending that the GOP isn't actively working to strip away women's rights, to send us back to the dark ages, all while smiling like she's on a campaign ad." Karoline let out a short, amused laugh. "Lisa, do you hear yourself?" She gestured toward her. "You're sitting here, a wealthy feminist activist on a nationally televised debate, telling me, a conservative woman who has built her own career, her own platform without asking for handouts, that I'm somehow oppressed?" Caldwell's nostrils flared. "You're benefiting from the very feminism you reject." Karoline's smirk widened. "Oh, please." The other panelists shifted uncomfortably. The audience was silent. Caldwell pushed forward. "Karoline, the reason you have a voice, the reason you're even allowed on this panel, is because of the women who fought before you. Feminists paved the way for you to have a career, to have a seat at this table. And now, instead of fighting for other women, you're cozying up to men in power who want to control our bodies and take away our rights. That makes you a traitor to women." The moment she said it, the air in the studio shifted. Karoline leaned back slightly, raising an eyebrow, as if she was actually impressed by how bold Caldwell was willing to be. The moderator hesitated, sensing the moment had escalated beyond the typical political bickering. "Lisa, let's keep this civil." "Oh, it's civil," Karoline interrupted smoothly. "I actually love that Lisa just said that. I love when people drop the act and say what they really mean." Caldwell's smug look returned. "Oh, don't worry, Karoline. I always say what I mean." Karoline nodded. "Good, because now I get to respond." She sat up a little straighter, her voice sharp but controlled. "Lisa, you keep saying I'm a traitor to women, but let me tell you what I actually believe." The audience leaned in. "I believe women are strong. I believe we are capable. I believe we don't need the government or radical feminists like you telling us what we should think, how we should vote, or what we should believe." Caldwell opened her mouth, but Karoline kept going. "I believe women can be successful without blaming men for everything that goes wrong in their lives. I believe in equal opportunity, not forced equality of outcome that punishes success. And I believe that feminism today isn't about empowering women at all. It's about demanding victimhood and punishing women who think for themselves. The crowd erupted in applause. Caldwell's face twitched. That's... Karoline didn't stop. You want to talk about betrayal, Lisa? Let's talk about how modern feminism has abandoned real women. Caldwell froze. Karoline leaned forward again, her voice deadly calm. You stand here pretending to fight for women, but you ignore the millions of women who are speaking up about how the feminist movement has been hijacked. You tell us to support all women, except the ones who are pro-life, except the ones who love their country, except the ones who don't follow your script. Caldwell tried to interject. That's not what Karoline cut her off. And let's be real, you don't actually fight for all women. You fight for your political side. The audience erupted. Caldwell's face turned bright red. She was losing control. The moderator quickly stepped in. Okay, we're going to... But Karoline wasn't finished. And just to be clear, she said, I don't need your permission to speak. I don't need feminism to tell me I'm allowed to have a career. And I sure as hell don't need a bunch of activists deciding who counts as a real woman. The audience exploded with applause. Caldwell looked furious. Her hands were clenched into fists, her lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time, she had nothing to say. Karoline adjusted her blazer, flashing a small smile. Well, she said, this was fun. The moderator quickly cut to commercial. But it was too late. The moment was already viral. And by morning, the entire country would be talking about how Karoline Leavitt had just ended the feminist argument in a single debate. The studio was in chaos. As soon as the show cut to commercial, producers rushed onto the stage, whispering frantically into their earpieces. Staff members swarmed around the panel, some trying to calm Lisa Caldwell, others attempting to coach the moderator on how to regain control of the segment. Caldwell was furious. Her face was still flushed red, her jaw clenched so tightly that it looked like she might snap. She yanked her microphone off her blazer, shaking her head. This is a joke, she muttered under her breath. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt sat completely still. She didn't look flustered. She didn't look rattled. She just watched. Caldwell finally turned back to her. You think this is funny? She snapped. Karoline smiled, calm and composed. I think it's hilarious. Caldwell scoffed. Oh, of course you do. Karoline tilted her head slightly. You know, Lisa, I don't think you're actually mad because of anything I said. I think you're mad because, for the first time, you couldn't control the conversation. Caldwell froze. You're used to people backing down, Karoline continued. You're used to calling someone a traitor or a sellout and having them crumble under the pressure. But I'm not one of those people. She shrugged. So now you don't know what to do. Caldwell's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. The silence stretched between them. The moderator finally stepped forward, clearing his throat. All right, ladies, let's... But Karoline wasn't done. She slowly leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table, her voice dropping just enough to pull the entire room in. Let me tell you what the real betrayal is, Lisa, she said, her voice smooth and deliberate. It's telling young women that they can only be successful if they embrace victimhood. It's telling them that they need feminism to have value. It's telling them that if they don't think exactly like you, they're somehow less of a woman. Caldwell's eyes flashed. That is not what Karoline raised a hand, cutting her off. And let's talk about what feminism has turned into. You say you fight for women, but where were you when biological men started taking over women's sports? The audience erupted. Caldwell's face darkened. That is not the issue here. Karoline didn't let up. You fight for women, but where were you when radical activists started telling little girls that their femininity is oppressive? Where were you when women who simply wanted to be wives and mothers were ridiculed for their choices? Caldwell's mouth opened and closed. Karoline leaned back slightly, shaking her head. You don't fight for all women, Lisa. You fight for your side. And that's why this conversation isn't actually about women's rights. It's about power. Silence. The entire panel sat motionless, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Caldwell's chest rose and fell quickly as she tried to compose herself. You're twisting my words, she said, her voice uneven. Karoline smirked. No, I'm just saying them back to you in a way you don't like. More applause. The moderator, realizing he was losing control again, quickly cut in. All right, let's move on to the next segment. But the damage was done. The second the camera started rolling again, Karoline's words had already gone viral. Clips of the exchange spread like wildfire. By the next morning, it was the only thing people were talking about. Social media exploded. Karoline just exposed modern feminism in 30 seconds. That moment when Lisa Caldwell realized she lost, priceless. Leavitt just did what no one else has had the guts to do. She fought back. Caldwell, once the darling of radical feminists, suddenly found herself on the defensive. The backlash was immediate. Even some of her own supporters questioned why she had failed so miserably. But Karoline? She walked out of that studio like she had just won a championship. And in a way she had. Because after that night, no one would ever look at the feminist movement the same way again. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire and challenge us to grow. What would you have done if you were in her shoes? Let us know in the comments below.